The passing of Dick Cheney, a figure emblematic of the traditional Republican establishment in neoconservative foreign policy, serves not as a cause of change, but as a powerful symbol of the profound transformation that has already occurred within the Grand Old Party, GOP. His death formalizes the end of an era, spotlighting the party's near-total shift away from the principles he championed towards the populist, nationalist, and personality-driven politics of the MAGA movement. This analysis summarizes the current state, explores the reasons and consequences of this shift, and posits potential future paths for the GOP. Summary and analysis. Dick Cheney's political life was defined by strong institutionalism, hawkish national security policy, and a commitment to free market principles. His influence peaked during the George W. Bush administration, establishing the intellectual and strategic foundation for the post-9/11 War on Terror. However, his final years were spent in open defiance of the party's current standard-bearer, Donald Trump. Cheney, along with his daughter Liz Cheney, became the face of a small, besieged faction of traditional conservatives struggling to retain a hold on the party's conscience and direction. The core analysis is this: Cheney's death is a marker for the defeat of his ideological wing. The GOP no longer operates on the basis of the Bush-Cheney doctrine. The base has decisively rejected the neoconservative focus on costly foreign interventions and international treaties, embracing an America First isolationism combined with a fierce focus on domestic culture war issues and populist economic nationalism. Cheney's passing confirms that the battle for the party's soul between the institutionalists and the populists has been overwhelmingly won by the latter. Reasons for the shift. The transformation of the GOP from Cheney's neoconservatism to Trump's populism is rooted in several intertwined factors. Iraq War. Disillusionment. The prolonged and costly nature of the Iraq War, central to the Cheney legacy, alienated large segments of the Republican base and independent voters. It created a deep skepticism toward the establishment's foreign policy expertise, making the party ripe for an isolationist challenge. Economic stagnation and globalization backlash. Following the 2008 financial crisis, many working-class Americans felt that the free market policies and globalization endorsed by the establishment GOP had benefited corporate elites at their expense. This economic anxiety fueled a desire for a protectionist and economically nationalist leader who promised to challenge the status quo. Rise of identity politics and media fragmentation. The evolution of conservative media created a feedback loop that amplified cultural grievances. The traditional GOP's focus on policy papers and economic theory proved less resonant than Trump's direct, combative rhetoric on immigration, social change, and national identity, which provided an outlet for the base's frustration. Charisma and party control. Donald Trump successfully leveraged his unique brand of celebrity and confrontational politics to bypass traditional party structures and establish direct loyalty with the voter base, effectively neutralizing the power of longtime party leaders and donors. Consequences and prediction. The immediate consequences of this shift are a rigid adherence to populist dogma and a de-emphasis on traditional conservative governance. Consequences. Policy inconsistency. The party's platform has become less tethered to clear ideological pillars, like fiscal conservatism or free trade, and more flexible based on the political moment or Trump's immediate agenda. Decline of expertise. There is a pronounced skepticism toward career politicians, diplomats, and military leaders, favoring politically loyalists over institutional experts. Intensified culture war. The GOP's primary focus remains on domestic culture issues, which drives voter turnout but often overshadows pragmatic legislative achievements. Prediction. The Trumpist mold will define the GOP for at least the next decade, even if Trump himself is no longer actively campaigning. His legacy is the permission structure for future leaders to adopt his populist style. However, two potential paths exist: sustained populism. Future leaders will likely try to replicate the MAGA formula, blending nationalist economics with aggressive cultural politics. The challenge will be maintaining cohesion without Trump's singular personality. The factional stalemate. The small, traditional conservative wing, symbolized by the Cheney family's defiance, will persist, potentially as a spoiler third party or as a marginal force in primaries, guaranteeing continued internal friction but ultimately failing to regain control. Solutions for the GOP, post-Cheney. For the Republican Party to effectively govern and expand its appeal beyond its current base, it needs to find a way to reconcile the populism that generates energy with the policy rigor that ensures stability. Integrate populist concerns with governing policy. Future leaders must demonstrate that economic nationalism and border security can be translated into effective, sustainable legislation, rather than just rhetorical rallying cries. Rebuild institutional trust. The party needs new, non-Trumpian figures who can credibly communicate both with the populist base and with institutional actors in Washington. This requires balancing an anti-establishment message with a capacity for effective, stable governance. Define a post-neoconservative foreign policy. The GOP must articulate a clear, coherent foreign policy that is neither isolationist nor neoconservative interventionist. A focus on strategic realism, prioritizing American interests while using power judiciously, could offer a new consensus. Embrace new demographics. To ensure long-term viability, the party must moderate its tone on certain social issues to appeal to younger, more diverse, and suburban voters who are turned off by the constant culture warfare, without alienating its core base. The end of the Dick Cheney era is less a transition point and more a clear acknowledgement of the fundamental revolution that has concluded within the Republican Party, leaving behind the traditional model and firmly establishing a new populist standard.